The Michigan game without Sharon Moore potentially on the sidelines, that's teed up for Nebraska to win. You've got to take advantage of the setting and no Sharon Moore and win that game. I mean, I think if they can win that Michigan game early, all bets are off where this season can go for Nebraska.
What is up, everybody? Thank you for joining Crain & Company and making Crain & Company a daily watch or listen. Remember, without you, there is no us. If you haven't subscribed yet, we would love if you did, regardless of who you root for or who you hate. We really appreciate you. Got another great one for you today. We're rolling through these previews almost to the end of them, guys. I mean, we've got, God, I don't even know how many previews we got out there, but we would be remiss if we did not talk about one of the most traditional programs out there. They haven't returned to glory yet. Some think they might, including maybe our guest, Sean Callahan from Huskers Online from the On3 Network. Let's go ahead and just put it together for Sean. Sean, what's up, buddy? How's it going?
Hey, it's great to be on, guys. Practice started yesterday. We're here, but we've made it.
I know. And again, we got done with SEC Media Days. Now that Big Ten's done, ACC's done, Big 12's done. We are into fall camp, which means we are only a few weeks from kickoff, but I like to think about it in days. Sean, you also got a great book that's coming out we're going to let the people know about. But man, a lot of people, when they talk about Nebraska, the first thing when they're breaking down the team is you talk about the past and what they used to be and what they aren't anymore and this, that, or the other. That's just a waste of time. Football is cyclical. Some cycles take longer than others. We're going to go through the schedule, all that. But when you look at this roster with Matt Rule now heading into his third year, and we've seen what he's done at the previous stops, how he's continued to build. Obviously, last year did some good things, gave some games away. I'm sure we're going to talk about that. But when you look at this roster, with what Nebraska has, whether it's line of scrimmage, whether it's skill position, even the coaching department, how ready is this Nebraska team to take that next step and give themselves a chance to be in the playoff conversation when we get into the latter parts of the season?
Well, I think the big thing is they invested heavily with NIL and rev share and the transfer portal to build this team around Dylan Raiola on offense first and foremost. They got Dane Key from Kentucky, and Georgia wanted him badly. Others did, and they won that battle head to head. Then they got Isaiah Hunter, who was the leading receiver for Cal. So they brought two really big weapons for Dylan Raiola, along with Cortez Mills, one of the top high school receivers in Florida. So the weapons around him are going to be better, but then the protection's going to be better too. Elijah Pritchett comes from Alabama. He was a 12-game tackle starter for the Crimson Tide. And then Rocco Spindler, a multiple-year guard starter for Notre Dame. And those were very expensive, probably seven-figure type acquisitions Nebraska made this offseason on the O-line. And then they returned a veteran group on that line. So I do think around Dylan Raiola, the receiver is going to be markedly better. The line play is going to be the best Nebraska's had in a while with Donovan Raiola running that line. Running back still kind of remains a question. Emmett Johnson, they expect to obviously be the one, but they don't really have an established two, and that's what fall camp is going to probably have to develop for them. And Dana Holgorsen, guys, year two for Dana.
Yeah.
They brought him in late over the last month of the year. He's been able to kind of put his spin on this offense, simplify things. I think Dana Holgorsen in this offense could make a huge jump, on the tune of maybe 10 or 12 more points per game scored than what they were a year ago.
Yeah, and Sean, when it comes to Dylan Raiola, I mean, we're hearing a ton about Arch Manning, and you hear a ton about DJ Lagway, you hear a ton about Bryce Underwood, decent amount about Julian Sayin. It's almost like Dylan Raiola's kind of slid to the back from a profile standpoint, and that could be a good thing in some circles because of expectation and thinking a guy is going to be this amazing player as a young player, which most of them aren't. Do you think Dylan Raiola could actually sneak up on some people this year in his improvement, maybe limit some of those turnovers when he was trying to force it and do a little bit too much last year?
Last year, his first month of the year was as good as any freshman in college football. Then you saw Brett Bielema in Illinois make an adjustment. I mean, he was lights out in that first half against the Illini. They switched from kind of a drop back zone defense to more delay blitzes, more man-to-man, and Nebraska's receivers weren't getting open, and he struggled making those throws. And then you saw the rest of the Big Ten adjust to Dylan Raiola, and he didn't have a really good kind of middle 6 games of the year. Then you saw Dana Holgorsen come in, and you saw what this offense could be with Dylan Raiola. The Wisconsin game, even at Iowa, he played well. He fumbled it late, but receiver dropped a wide open pass that would have won the game for Nebraska. And he's Isaiah Nayor is a good receiver. He's in the 49ers right now. So Dylan made some plays late, came on. I just think with Dana now, with him in this full year, this full offseason, his history just says enough already that you're going to hopefully see a big jump out of Dylan Raiola.
Well, Cone, we always talk about quarterbacks are like pitchers. It's not how you come out, it's how you adjust to the adjustment. And it's going to be interesting to see Dylan's improvement going into the season with some better weapons.
Well, naturally, he had ups and downs, but we're still talking about a kid who threw for 2,800 yards and had a 67% completion percentage as a true freshman. I mean, so many of these other guys across the country, they get the benefit of having a redshirt year, or they get to come in games in packages, right? He had to start as a true freshman. He knew what he signed up for, but 2,800 yards, 67% completion percentage, that to me is a good start. I anticipate a lot of development from year one to year two. And when you talk about Dana Holgorsen calling plays, the addition on the offensive line from Alabama and from Notre Dame, and the wide receiver additions, I'm really excited to see what Nebraska can do on offense. Let's talk about on defense, though, because Tony White left for Florida State. How is the defense looking so far? I know we're early into fall camp, but is that going to be a unit that can dictate games late in the season for Nebraska?
Well, John Butler moved into that coordinator chair for the Pinstripe Bowl, and he was the secondary coach for the Buffalo Bills before Nebraska. Before that, he had been a coordinator at Penn State, and the Houston Texans, worked with Bill O'Brien there as well. So a veteran coach that takes over for Tony White. I mean, the real question is their defensive line.
Yeah.
They lost 3 guys that were 5th and 6th year seniors. Ty Robinson, who's with the Eagles, Nash Hutmacher, who's now with the Buccaneers, and then Jamari Butler, who's at LSU. He transferred for his final year of eligibility to play for the Tigers. So replacing that group, which at times was dominant, they don't get as much credit as they probably deserved. I mean, you go back to the Ohio State game, the Buckeyes guys had 1 rushing first down on Nebraska, 1. Yeah. You tell me another defense that did that to Ohio State and Chip Kelly all year, none. So when they were playing well at times, nobody could run the ball on that group, and they have to replace that group up front. They brought in some transfers, Williams Winery from Missouri, a former 5-star. Mm-hmm. Probably not projected as a starter, though, as you look at this group. Dasan McCullough was brought in from Oklahoma, more of an edge hybrid piece that they're going to utilize in what they call the jack position. Marquise Watson-Trent was the Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year.
Sean, didn't he have 365 total tackles at Georgia Southern? I don't care if you're playing in Friday Night Tykes. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, correct. And he had a lot of offers to go places, and he's a 6-year senior. He's actually played a game at Memorial Stadium. Georgia Southern beat Nebraska.
That
yeah.
And Scott Frost was fired the next day after that game, if you remember back a couple years ago. So Watson-Trent was I think a 3-time all-conference player in the Sun Belt, Defensive Player of the Year. It wouldn't surprise me if he's their leading tackler, but then they have Vincent Shavers and Willis McGahee's kid, Willis McGahee the 4th. So there's a lot of pieces. Their secondary returns 4 of 5 starters. And then their new starter they brought in was Andrew Marshall from Idaho. He projects to start. He was a first-team All-Big Sky corner. That is an NFL level type corner they brought in. So yeah, there's pieces there. I still think that up front play, though, can they produce with the 4-man rush? That's going to be a real big X factor to the success of this defense.
All right, boys, it's time for, it's like picking kids when it comes to, ads here. But if I had to pick my favorite, Good Ranchers is right up there.
At least you get to pick yours.
At least you get to choose yours. We just went over to your house to celebrate my wife's birthday.
That was a good time.
We had Good Ranchers Wagyu beef.
Yeah.
We had steaks. The chicken's unbelievable. And thanks to Good Ranchers, our barbecue and game day sliders, they're always made with quality meat. That's because Good Ranchers sources 100% American meat with all cuts coming directly from local farms and ranches. And choosing Good Ranchers means supporting both our community and American ranchers while enjoying premium cuts that bring families and friends together around the table or the tailgate. Plus, with Good Ranchers doorstep delivery, I can worry about literally anything else rather than spending time at the grocery store and overpaying or searching for something delicious to serve. Again, we've used them forever. I will use them forever. And here's a great deal. If you subscribe to any Good Ranchers box today, you get your pick of free meat for the rest of your life. I'm talking free Wagyu burgers, hot dogs, bacon, or chicken wings in every single box. And then when you use our code BOOSTER at goodranchers.com, you'll get an extra $40 off. So head on over to goodranchers.com, Use our code BOOSTER, that's BOOSTER, for that $40 off plus free meat for life. GoodRanchers.com. Welcome to the table, or the tailgate, baby. Best in the business.
Anytime you run out someone on the football field named Willis McGahee, good things usually happen.
Yeah.
Which Miami and Nebraska, I mean, that would have been a national championship when I was growing up.
Yeah, for sure.
I played against them.
Well, I'm interested, Sean, with Tony White leaving, which David brought up, is it, and when you're worried about the defensive line and the depth on the defensive line, obviously the 3 down is a little bit more advantageous than the 4 down. Are they going to stick with the 3 down, or are we going to get a 4 down true base defense from Nebraska this year?
It's a blend.
Yeah.
They call it a 3 down, but really that jack position
Becomes
is essentially an athletic defensive end that can drop back to. But they'll, in the Big Ten, you have to mix it up, and you can't just play 3 down. But I do think there's versatility there. The key will be their 3rd down package. They were really good last year on 1st and 2nd downs.
Mm-hmm.
You go back to some of these games against like UCLA and where they had some struggles. They could not get off the field on 3rd downs, on the 3rd and longs even. They struggled at 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 9s at times when their defense looked like they were going to win and get quick 3 and outs. UCLA in that game last year, I want to say held the ball for 14 of the first 16 minutes of the ball game.
Well, with the 3 down, you got Elijah Judy at nose. That's why I asked if they're going to keep it. Because the hardest spot to find a dog is at that nose, at that 0, at that shade, and they got one.
Well, you brought in Matt Rule, and what do we call Matt Rule? The builder?
The builder.
Right? The builder, the fixer. And one crazy thing I've learned about Nebraska is since 2018, Nebraska has 34 one-score losses. 34. That's 9 more than any other team. And
That's insane.
Matt Rule has 10 one-score losses. He's 3-10 record with 5 of Nebraska's 6 losses last year being by one touchdown. What can Nebraska and Matt Rule do to reverse that trend, to finish games? Because at the end of the day, that's why Nebraska brought Matt Rule in.
It's a lot of things, but special teams was a big part of it. They have struggled at kicker. And, they brought in another transfer this year, Kyle Callahan. They've had kickers get hurt. Last year, they struggled at long snapper, if you can believe that. They had 10 kicks and punts blocked last year. 10. Which I don't know if someone keeps that stat, but there can't be a Power 4 program in recent history that's had more than that. And so they won the Rutgers game when Greg Schiano blocked 2 punts.
Which never happens. You lose like 86% of games where, believe me, as former special teams coordinator, that's a Dan Reeves stat.
But they brought in a new snapper, and then they went in and got an Australian punter, Archie Wilson, and he's from the same place that Torrey Taylor's from. He's a freshman, and he's been outstanding. Mike Eckler came from Tennessee, where he really did a great job with those Vols special teams, and he's a Nebraska native, wanted to come back to Nebraska. So I do think you're going to see an upgraded special teams. And look at the Iowa game, guys. They muffed a punt inside the 5. That's the only way Iowa was going to score. Caleb Johnson had his worst game of the season against Nebraska. He couldn't run the ball at all, other than the one play that he broke free on a check down. So the special teams was a real issue that, honestly, with field position, the block kicks, the inability to consistently make field goals at times really is the difference in a lot of Big Ten football games.
Yeah.
You want to go through the schedule?
Yeah, I got it right here. So you start Cincinnati, August 28th. You have that game at home, going to be on ESPN. Then you have Akron at home, Houston Christian at home. Then you have the Fighting David Cones, Michigan at home, Michigan State at home, at Maryland, at Minnesota, Northwestern at home, USC at home, at UCLA, at Penn State, and Iowa at home. And right now, Nebraska, from a total win standpoint on the season, the over is sitting at 7.5 wins, and the money right now is on the over at -140.
So Sean, the road schedule outside of at Penn State isn't exactly daunting.
No, you look at those 3. Well, first of all, Cincinnati, that's their home game that they gave up to play at Arrowhead. And there's going to be 65,000 Nebraska fans in Arrowhead Stadium. I know they had already sold over 70,000 seats for the game. So it's going to be a full stadium of Nebraska fans. That won't be a road game. Then UCLA, as you know, when teams like Iowa and Nebraska play out at UCLA, they travel. There'll be 25,000 Nebraska fans there. Maryland, if you can believe it or not, will also be a ton of Nebraska fans in that stadium because there's a huge alumni base around the D.C. area, the Virginia area, the North Carolina area. And then you got Minnesota on a Friday night. And that's kind of a wild card because I've been to Minneapolis for a lot of games, and I've seen a lot of sleepy 11 a.m. games there. We were there a couple years ago for a Labor Day Thursday night game. That was wild. What will Friday night be at that time of the year? But there'll still be a lot of Nebraska fans that go. But you're right. Penn State is the one. When you look at the 12 games, I think Penn State's the one. You're like, yep, Nebraska's a decisive dog there. I think the other 11 games, you can make a case in almost all of them. And that's why they're such an intriguing team right now. But USC, we don't know what they're going to be like. We don't really know Iowa, what they're going to look like with their new quarterback. There's just some things about the Big Ten that you can't predict this early out with where some of these teams are going to be.
But even with Penn State, you get a bye the week before.
Right.
So if you're going to have to go on the road to Happy Valley, at least get a bye. 2024 Nebraska started 5-1. Finished 1-5. And this schedule's a bit back heavy too. What keeps Nebraska this year from starting off great and then having a 1-5 skid to end the year?
I think the early season, well, first of all, they had to win the opener. That's a given. But the Michigan game without Sharon Moore potentially on the sidelines, that's teed up for Nebraska to win. It's going to be a 2:30 game on CBS in Lincoln. Probably 90-degree type heat. So you've got to take advantage of the setting and no Sharon Moore and win that game. I mean, I think if they can win that Michigan game early, all bets are off where this season can go for Nebraska. But USC is kind of one of those swing games. UCLA really had their number last year, and what will they be like with Nico at quarterback? That's another one of those kind of games. But you have to win the games you're supposed to win. Northwestern's one of those games, probably. Maryland's another one of them that you have to get wins in those type of games. Which in the Big Ten, just like the SEC, there aren't a lot of given wins. But those are two games where you would like Nebraska's chances. The Huskers have not beat Minnesota, guys, since 2018, and that was during Scott Frost's inaugural season. So PJ Fleck has owned the Huskers. They've got to figure out that one. And here's a crazy stat about Iowa. Nebraska has only beaten Iowa in now the 15-year history of the Heroes Trophy one time in Lincoln. All of their other wins have been in Iowa City. Their only win was in 2011 against the Hawkeyes. So that game in Lincoln will be big because more than likely there's rumors that the Penn State game is going to be a night game on NBC. Then they got to fly back and play Iowa at 11 a.m. on a Black Friday. So that's almost like 2 days less rest on your body when you count the kickoffs and the travel time. And that will be a tough turn to play Iowa late in the year.
Again, you look at that schedule, Cone, you bring up a good point. It is back heavy, but if this team can get some momentum, and Blaine, you bring up the one-score games, you can look at that two different ways. Obviously, it sucks that you've lost a lot of them, but that means if you catch a couple breaks, you could flip and actually have a big season.
Yeah.
It's not like you're just getting blown out of the water like you're.
Yeah, but 34 once.
34 again. That's way too much.
Insane stat.
But again, glass half full, silver lining, all that. Sean, what I want to ask you, outside of the amount of memes that we're going to get with Dylan Raiola at Arrowhead Stadium, which may be the most memeified pregame warm-up in the history of the world, or week leading up to it. I know Nebraska fans always show up and show out. When we played there in Lincoln, even though we were South Alabama, they showed up, the Boneyard, all that stuff. But out of 10, to the Nebraska fans right now, how confident should they be that this team could break a ceiling a little bit or get past that 7, 8 win mark and really get Nebraska again back into the conversation later in the year? 1 out of 10.
I think for this season to really feel right, they have to win at least 8, if not 9. But 8 is kind of like the start. Where if they go 7-5 with this schedule and the talent they've paid for in terms of adding, I think there'll be some pretty disappointed fans. So the confidence is high, but you want to see it. And man, what an opportunity! I mean, they are the big game that Thursday night in Arrowhead Stadium. There is no other P4 on P4 matchups on that opening Thursday night. So there will be a lot of eyeballs on Dylan Raiola, on Matt Rule in Arrowhead Stadium against a Cincinnati team that, has added some pretty good players, and they're going to try to run it at Nebraska early. They're more of a physical downhill team. So it will be a good test for Nebraska in this opener to really see what this team looks like. And a lot of people will make their opinions about Nebraska, I think, nationally, just watching that opener and kind of decide how good this team might have a chance to be this year.
Yeah, all eyes on the Huskers.
Well, if there's ever a time for Nebraska, I feel like it's now, right? Like, I feel like it's right now. You bring in Matt Rule, he's your guy. You get Dylan Raiola, a 5-star, high-profile quarterback, the guy who's going to come save you. He has his freshman year last year, has his ups and downs. He's learned your experience. The schedule is favorable.
Yeah.
If there's ever a time for Nebraska to do it, to break back into the main stage of things, to be the Nebraska of old, I feel like it's this year, and it's going to have to be on the back of Dylan Raiola. I really believe that. And right now, from
that's what they brought him there to do. That's what they brought him there to
from
do.
From an odds standpoint, he's plus 6,500 to win the Heisman. And Nebraska, I believe, is plus 3,500 to win the
See, 10 years ago, I probably would have said no, right? He's a sophomore. Like, he's going to be a true sophomore. Like, it's not a now or never. Let's don't panic. But in an NIL and open transfer portal era where you have to retain these guys every year, then, yeah, it kind of is like, look what all you've done to go out and get these offensive linemen, to get these wide receivers, and then you're going to have to re-recruit Dylan Raiola every year. I mean, I don't know all the details of his contract, but that's the current landscape of college football. It's like, yeah, you're built now to do it. Make the college football playoff.
And you've improved so much in the receiver room, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that's going to help him so much. Because, again, zone, Dylan was one of the best in the country last year. Absolutely tore zone apart. But man to man, you saw those numbers come down. And that's not only on the quarterback, that's come down the athlete.
Well, you got to have double. That's where Dane Key is going to help you. It's like, all right, you're going to have to bracket one guy, and then you've actually got a 2 and a 3 and possibly a 4 that can win that one-on-one matchup, because you're not just going to have guys running butt-naked, wide-ass open the whole game. But, Sean, great stuff, man. Husker Online, you guys are doing a great job over at On3. Please tell everybody about your book, where they can find it, if they haven't already ordered one.
Yeah, the book just came out, as you said earlier. Today is the official release day, but it's everywhere. You can buy books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble locally. All the local stores carry the book. I was in a Barnes & Noble last night and saw it in there. But Amazon's probably your best bet. The book is titled The Program Nebraska, and it's a curated history of Cornhusker football. Tom Osborne wrote the foreword of the book.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of great interviews and details of the program. With Triumph Publishing is who I worked with on the book project. It's my second book I've done. Did one about 10 years ago, and this one is our latest release.
Well, Sean, we're excited. We're going to get a copy to read and put here in the studio. Thanks so much for joining us, man. Need to have you back on during the season. Good luck this year. I know the Nebraska fans are excited, and we're excited to see what they do in the encore performance from Dylan Raiola. So thanks for joining us, my friend.
Hey, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Of course. And thank you guys for watching. Again, if you're not subscribed, make sure you are. And like the chances of me not being a little excited to see Dylan Raiola cosplay as Patrick Mahomes week 1. We're going. Ooh, gone.